And there's a lot to talk about in that game. Obviously, LSU they open as home dogs, and which has always seemed recently bode well for LSU when that happens. They are 3-point dogs. Percentage came out, right, Jared?
Yeah.
Percentage came out. I guess ESPN's whatever analytics.
Yeah, I don't,
one of the analytics stats.
Yeah.
What was the number?
The number was 70% that Alabama has a chance to win this game, which
70.
I find to be.
That's a lot.
It just seems kind of high. I don't really know how else to say it. It seems kind of high.
What were some of the stats that you rattled off in the group text that I wasn't even aware of, that you talked about Brian Kelly at night games?
Oh, Brian Kelly at night games in Death Valley since he's been here, obviously. He's 13-0, and one of those 13 includes a win against Alabama here.
Yeah.
But somehow still, Alabama is
70% chance to win.
Clip of win this
And
probability to win this game.
So 13-0 in night games, 2-0 when he's in home underdog. All right, I believe he's only been a home underdog twice. Ole Miss this year and Alabama 2 years ago. Both games he's won. I could be wrong on that. Maybe he was a dog against Tennessee when they got their ass kicked.
Didn't win that one.
But they may not have been because they're actually flying high. They're actually pretty
coming
good.
off the Ole Miss win.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like they were probably dogs in that one. I could be wrong though.
Maybe.
If it's
I don't know what the dog how far or how much of an underdog they were in 2022. Do you know?
They probably were an underdog, I would imagine.
They were against Bama, but I don't know how much of an underdog they were. Like, was it 3 points? Was it 5 points? Was it 7 points? Can't imagine, Vegas making it more than 4 points, at home at LSU.
I would even think that year where LSU was also, like you said, still was probably kind of right where you are now. You feel better about this team than you did probably the 2022 team because you didn't really know what you had.
Yeah, and that was when you lost to A&M.
Yeah, that was when everything was still right in front of you.
Beat Bama and lost A&M. Yeah, that was
and beat Ole Miss, lost to Tennessee. It felt like a Brian Kelly special. This is what he did at Notre Dame. And so now you feel, I would say you feel better about this team despite being down.
I do.
Harold Perkins, despite being down Jacoby and Guillory, despite being down Garrett Dellinger. Like, you've been bitten by the injury bug here lately. But it does feel like you know a little bit more of what you have offensively, which is crazy to say because that was the year that everybody wanted Nussmeier to play in 2022.
Yeah.
Fast forward 2023.
Now they don't think he's good enough.
Yeah. Now they want him to run.
Yeah.
Pick one.
I feel like LSU is in a lot better spot this year than they have been in those years, right? And especially 2 years ago. I think this weekend, LSU's coming off of probably their worst game of the year. Like,
yeah, no doubt. Well,
no doubt. Worst half, really.
Most disappointing game of the year.
A quarter and a half, right? Like, not just because they lost, it was just how they lost, right? They were up by double digits.
They were dominating the game.
And then one thing happens, and then everything falls apart. Turnovers, short fields for A&M. Obviously, the quarterback comes in, can't adjust, all these types of things. So you're coming off of your worst game of the year, right? A game that's you have uncharacteristic turnovers. You're doing these things that you hadn't done, and you've gotten better on as the season goes on. So then you go into this game, you have a bye week to kind of fix it, and you come back home against Alabama, your biggest rival. I firmly believe, and I'm not saying this, and I can say this and people don't believe me because obviously I am biased and I am a homer because I love LSU. But I'm not saying this, and I'm trying to say this in the most non-biased way. I really do believe that the offense is going to look a lot sharper. And I'm not saying they're going to do anything crazy, extraordinary, or change the whole offense. I just think that the passes are going to be a little bit crisper. They're going to be a little bit more on target, on time, in rhythm. I think they're going to try to do different things to keep that rhythm going and not say, let's stretch the field vertically early. I think you still see it, but you're not going to see 52 balls being thrown in the air and 25 of them being thrown 20 yards down the field. That's what I think. I think we're going to have to see that, but there's some other factors in the game. Jared, what do you think, or what do you want to see, or what are some things that you believe that's going to put LSU over the edge, and what do you think that Alabama is going to cause the most issues with?
I think, like, at this point in the year, you are pretty much who you are, right? So there's not going to be much change in the running game. There's some things we talked about, obviously, already that we would like to see a little bit different. I'm just wondering when it comes to what it is during the running game, like if you're not going to run it super effectively, if you're not going to put up 150 yards on the ground, which I just don't see that happening in this game, how much is it going to affect you in this game? Because I do think back, and I look back at the A&M game and the turnovers that happened at that point. 2 weeks out of it, you haven't really seen it happen. You've seen a huge step forward in him this year. I just can't imagine two games in a row, Nuss making those mistakes the way he did in that game and throwing the picks that he did in that game and doing that again. Like there was he threw in some coverages, he forced some balls, he got kind of tricked in some situations where it was low-key kind of easy picks for the defense.
Right.
I don't foresee that happening 2 games in a row for him in that situation. So
Agreed.
Even if he is pushing the ball down the field, even if it is not being run well, if they're not giving the ball away at that clip the way they did in that game, how much closer does this game stay? How much does the run game or the lack of run game affect kind of how this thing kind of ends in the end? And I do think those things are going to play huge in this game, and I'm wondering how that's going to play out.
Yeah. No, I think that's those are really good points, right? Because you just haven't really seen it much, right? You just don't know. It's a wild card, right? Like, what is it going to look like? How is it going to affect the game rhythm?
It's one of those things where it's like when you don't run the ball as well as LSU has not run the ball this year, which is a wild thing to say here, and it's kind of crazy to think about here. It's an unsettling feeling going into the game when you're thinking about trying to have your offense settle in, get going, start moving the rock, starting to assert their dominance a little bit because you don't know how it's going to happen. So now you're figuring like, all right, what plays are we going to hit them, quote unquote, over the top with, or like what stuff do we have to do to kind of soften them up just to be able to put the ball on the ground?
Right.
It's a weird thing to kind of think about offensively going into this game.
And it's a tough thing for the coaches. It's tricky for the coaching staff because you're trying to game plan, right? You're the whole point of the game plan is say, hey, we're going to do these things to put us in a position to have the lead. For at the end of the game, we're going to try to bleed the clock out, run the clock out, and you want to have that last little bit finisher to end the game, right? When you don't have that running game or that reliable running game, well, now you are forcing the coaching staff to game plan the back end of the game with, hey, if this doesn't work, we're going to have to figure out another way to close the game out, which that's when the game, when you have a close game, that's when it gets a little tighter and it makes it a little bit harder. If you don't have a way to close it out, you don't have the closer, which is the running game, that makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, it makes it super difficult in the end of the game. It doesn't matter if it's a 3-point lead or a 17-point lead. You get into the second half and you're not able to move the rock on the ground. You're not able to pick up first downs on the ground, and you're not continuing to keep drives going on the ground. It becomes really hard for you to continue to put the ball in the air, to continue to ask those guys to make contested catches, to continue to try to move it like that throughout the game, knowing that you can't do it on the ground. So it's one of those things where there's two closers, right? Being able to run the ball and or being able to rush the passer on the other side that good teams have. Are you going to be able to do that in this game, whatever one it is?
I'm glad you said that, right? Talk about rushing the passer, right? I think they can you pull those stats back up, Lloyd? Like the graphic on Alabama's offense?
Alabama's offense?
Yes, please. LSU's defense, if you look at top 50, getting close. So the top 50 is points per game.
I feel like we talked about that.
I think that's been mentioned a few times.
I think we've said it a couple times.
Alabama offensively, they don't have a ton of yardage. Like they're top 50 in total yards per game. In the red zone, not very good. Right, tied for 90th in red zone scoring. I thought they were going to talk about sacks, but they do not. Is there a slide that do talk about sacks? My point in saying this is LSU's defensive line has been one of their strong points or strong parts of the team. Right? So that's the offense defense. Okay, that's where the sacks were. But Alabama's offensive line has been a point of weakness for them or point of inconsistency for them. They have a center that transferred from Washington with Kalen Deboer. I think he was
you really made him from Alabama there.
Huh?
Deboer.
I
don't know if I trust that Kalen
Deboer. The Kalen Deboer.
Run the damn ball, Deboer.
I'm pretty sure that center was the Remington Award winner last year. Or if not, he was a finalist for it. He transfers from Washington to Alabama. A little bit of an undersized center, but, leverage wins, right? Those low-manning wins, that type of stuff. seems like he's kind of getting pushed around a little bit in the SEC, and the offensive line as a whole has been not up to par of what we're come to expect from Alabama. Yeah. And LSU's defensive line has been pretty dominant and has gotten after the quarterback and has been able to wreak havoc. And so I believe that's a matchup to watch. LSU's defensive line versus Alabama's offensive line. Who's going to be able to give in first?
For what LSU does good and what their offense does bad, I like LSU's opportunity and their chances in this game, because if you're able to relentlessly get after Milroe and start making him make decisions from the pocket, whether that be him trying to run or whether that be him trying to break down a defense and make throws, that's where they struggle at. And if you're able to kind of get in his head, speed up his process a little bit, I think that bodes well for LSU, because that's not where he wants to live and that's not what he does best. If you kind of take away that athleticism from him a little bit and kind of get in his face, that bodes well for LSU, and I like their chances if they're able to do those kind of things.
Lloyd, what do you want to see? What do you think?
I actually was going to put. Well, I was just doing a little bit of mental math over here on my calculator.
Mental math.
Mental math on the calculator.
On the calculator.
Okay.
Yeah. You got it.
How many times do you think Nussmeier averages? How many throws do you think he averages a game?
35.
Jared?
I was going to say like 38.
41.
Wow. That's too much.
That's 2 games where he's thrown. He has 2 games where he's thrown it over 50 times. Ole Miss, a game that you almost lost, but also won, and then the Texas A&M game where he went over 50 times. So that was going to be my question. If it's even around 40, does that make you feel better? Because I feel like the number would be like 35 to 38, and that means your run game's working.
The number for me would love it to be between 30 and 35.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I don't really think that's going to be a thing. I do.
But that's not going to be a thing.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah.
Win, lose, or draw, I think it's going to be 40-40 plus. It's just, like we talked about, how those throws happen. Are we having to push them down the field 10 to 12 to 15 yards every time? Or can we start extending the run game horizontally, making these screen throws, making things easier for him, and picking up first downs that way?
Can he go 30 of 40, right? Like, can he go 28 of 40, right? Not 20 of 40. Can he go 30 of 42, right? 31 of 45. Something along those lines would look better than 50% completion percentage, and you are throwing you go 1 of 9 throwing the ball down the field, right? Like those throws, it's like the missed fastball. Doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything unless you throw it close enough to the receiver to catch it, or you throw it close enough to the strike zone for the batter to even think about swinging. That doesn't do anything. Throwing these deep balls, just throw these deep balls that you overthrow them by 4 yards. That doesn't do anything to the defense. Yeah. Because it's like, well, what do you like? Okay, if you're just going to do that, then fine. You're not scaring us.
You're going to live in 3rd and 8.
You're not completing it. So it's I guess it's not as much as it's not the amount of attempts that they're going to have. It's the what the attempts are going to be.
They are 6th in the country in passes per game, and 126 in the country in rushes per game.
Of course. Now, I would like to see them try.
That was going to be my bigger point.
I would like to see them look, you can't change the running game. You are who you are. There's other things you can try to do to enhance the running game. But let's try it. You have to continue to – you can't just scrap it in the first quarter.
But it's like we talked about.
The second quarter.
We've talked about this a lot of times. It's what are those attempts? What are those tries?
Right.
Are they 1st and 10,
that's
shotgun handed to him right up the middle, and we just run right into the center's back? Is that the attempt? Because if that's what our try is going to be, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see us being able to just move that defensive line that way and just opening up huge holes like that. So if that's the try, I don't care if we got 30 of them.
Yeah.
I don't really think it's going to be that successful against this defense. So how are you going to do it? What kind of creativity are you going to put into it? And that's what I'm looking to see.
Yeah, and that's – same thing we're talking about the passing game, right? What are the quality? What are the passes? What are the run attempts, right? I want you to try to do it. I don't want you to give up, and I want you to continue to try to establish a run game, but you got to get creative in the run game, right? You can't just do the same thing over and over again. I think, look, they've had 2 weeks. I think that they know that they have the potential to run, right? They have a good offensive line. That's obviously one of the best pass protection offensive lines in the country. Running game, they're not great, but they're talented. So you would imagine they have the ability to do that. So that's what I want to see is how are they going to try to figure out how are they going to maximize the abilities of the offensive line, the running backs, to at least have some resemblance of a running game.
I do think there's something that that in this game, if you're able to set this tone really early, I do think something like how they play and how physical they play on the perimeter, from the receivers, from the tight ends going to block out here, from the swinging guards and tackles, if they choose to do it that way. If you start playing really physical and you start slowing down and beating down their will to chase the ball and pursue the ball,
Yeah.
I do think that's going to weigh heavy towards the back end of the game, where if you can do that and you can do it successfully in this game, that may open up that run dimension in the second half of the game if you have a chance to kind of bring the game home that way.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm interested to see how they. Well, first thing, I think the bye week was obviously a great timing for LSU, and it wasn't a bye week that you had the last time where you came out of it with more injuries than not, because it felt like they wanted to practice a little bit harder, fix some things that they still think they needed to work on. That's when C.J. Daniels gets hurt, and you had a bunch of other people that didn't really feel like they got healthy. This bye week, I feel like Caden Durham's going to be as close to 100% since he started the year. Obviously, you don't have Dellinger, but you have the time to get Mubanga ready. And that's where my first question would be, offensively, how do you kind of try and protect Mubanga on the inside? Is there a way, do you use some sort of formation to be able to help him a little bit inside, or do you kind of line up and play the way that you have been? Because I think that they're going to put maybe a inline tight end like Mason Taylor closer to the line of scrimmage. You might not see as much Trey Green, but I think that would be the one way to help him a little bit, because you feel confident, I guess, in his pass. I feel more confident in Nussmeier's ability to navigate in the pocket around the Paul Mubanga if he's going to be a liability than I do about them figuring out the run game around him.
Listen, chipping and or kind of bringing extra people in it, like that is a thing a little bit, but I would imagine they're going to slide more protections this way, and they're not going to just leave him on an island as much. Good thing for him is name me who's he lining up against. Who do you feel that scared about that you feel like they're going to wreck the game being over him?
Yeah, they don't have that.
They don't have that this year. So it is a good situation to be in a sense for him, where he's not facing someone that is that feared, that is that level of player yet. I'm not saying they don't have good players. It's still Alabama. They still do what they do, right? But my point is I don't think this is a good welcome game for him, in the sense of he got 2 weeks to practice. He's got a chance to kind of get in there, and I think he's going to fare better than what you think these days. But it's a worry, and I think it's something that they have maybe a backup plan for. But you're not going to go into the game thinking like, oh my God, we got no shot with him here, so we got to be able to help him every single time he's out there.
Right, you're putting him in there. He's the backup, or he's the guy that is assuming that role because he's the most capable.
And they didn't build this offensive line off of, hey, we just got 5, and if one of these guys go down, like we're shit out of luck. So I do think that they see capability in him, and now it's just kind of, it's a little early. It's just like everything up. It's the next man up.
How do you feel like the defense is going to play, right? Because we talked about that. Alabama's not a, hey, we're going to go and take you down the field type of offense. Now, they may run it, but in the passing game, like, they're not going to go there, and they're not going to have these receivers having 7, 9, 8, 10 catches a game, right? You're going to have Ryan Williams, who's going to take it top off the defense. He's going to have a big play. Someone's going to miss a tackle, and he's going to go for 75 yards. But if you take that away, you force them to go the length of the field and not have these big plays, I think that they struggle, and then you give them more opportunities to get your defensive line to get to them. How do you think the defense is going to play against Bama? Like, what do you think the scheme is going to look like?
I mean, as far as like what they're going to try to do, I think they want to make Jalen Milroe play from the pocket. I really do. They know that they're a big play offense. I think we had it up there earlier. They're one of the top 20 best teams in the country in terms of being able to hit 20-yard plays. So they know that that's what they do. But with that being said, I would imagine a lot of those is when Jalen Milroe has broken some sort of containment and been able to make moves and make plays and being able to hit Ryan Williams down the field. So look, I think they want to make him play from the pocket, but I think they want to be very physical and very just all over him in the sense of, I'm going to make you play from here, but I'm not going to let you sit here all day and do what you want. So I think being able to do that, being able to stop some of this run, and I don't think, for everyone that's so worried about it, I don't think you're going to see 100-plus and 4 touchdowns that you saw last year in Tuscaloosa, and I don't think you're going to see 4 straight series of touchdowns like you saw last 2 weeks ago in A&M, right? Like, I think this defense is going to be up to the option read type of run. I'm not saying Jalen Milroe's not going to do his thing. He's going to do his thing. It's how much can you minimize it? How much can you kind of temper what he can do? Because if you let him take it over, he'll take it over and run you out of your own stadium.
And force him to go the length of the field.
Yeah.
Don't say, hey, here's, you're gonna go 80 yards in 4 plays and have all these big chunk plays and 2-minute drives. Like, that's, and LSU's done a good job up to this point of not having a lot of that, right? Every now and then they give a big play, but there hasn't been a lot of those busted coverages that they had last year. So if they can keep that and keep the guys in front of them as much as they can, force their wide receivers to play like a wide receiver and run routes and be underneath and then make tackles, I think that's the biggest thing. Can't miss tackles. This is a team full of guys who have force you to miss tackles. When you have an opportunity to make a tackle, don't miss it. Linebackers that are going to replace some of the other ones, I'm anxious to see how those young linebackers fare against this type of team.
Because that is what Alabama has done well. They have 51 plays over 20 yards, and that's
right.
I feel like that's a lot of Ryan Williams.
Right.
And Jalen Milroe, whenever he is, either it's a designed run or he's scrambling, like it's usually for a big pop. So
yeah,
I'm interested to see the defensive strategy without a Harold Perkins, and that would be like the easiest fix. Yeah. Like going into the game, if you still have to like, all right, you didn't spy him last year. Probably a good idea to spy him this year, or at least have some sort
Coach,
of mush rush contained.
You just can't. But here's the thing: you got to remember this. We can't just go out and say just because Jalen Milroe's a quarterback that if they run 65 plays on offense, we spying them 65 plays.
Right.
You have to be able to mix it up on them. You have to be able to put them in third and predictable. Right. You have to be able to be in a situation where you're on attack, even though you're on defense. Okay. So like a lot of that stuff, if we're gonna spy them, if we're not, of course we're gonna damn spy them. But how much do you have to? How much are you gonna need to? And then when you do you get home? When you do you not let him do what he wants to do? Those are the differences. Like, it's gonna happen. That's not even a question. I'm not worried about if you will or if you won't. You will. How much though? When do you have to do it?
And look, you're gonna have to make some big plays, right? And I'm not saying
you're gonna have to tackle him a couple times in open field.
Yep.
You're gonna have to do these type of things.
And that's when I say big play. I'm not even talking about I'm talking about that, right? I'm not saying turnovers are great, sacks, all that stuff is great, but the big plays are, hey, when it's you and this guy, you've got to be the guy to make the tackle.
Yeah, when you're in the phone booth with him, bring him down.
You got to bring him down. Or
the majority
hold them up enough for someone to come get him. Because the reason they got beat 2 years ago or last year was because you couldn't do that. He was running around like he was a crazy man. You couldn't stop him. You couldn't do anything, and you didn't even attempt to stop him. So I think when you have the opportunity in the open field, you make the tackle. And then when you have an opportunity to make the big play, like the game changer, the turnovers, the interceptions, the batted balls up top, you got to end up coming down with a couple of those.
Yeah.
Right? Like the ones that, you saw it happen in the first game of the season. Right? You had a bunch of balls on the ground, bunch of balls that fluttered in the air, and just kind of out the grasp of our arms.
I tell you what, this will be something that I think will play huge for LSU in this situation, just knowing what type of game this is, the implications behind it, and you being at home and them on the road. If LSU is able to find a way to get a turnover in plus territory early in the game and be able to cash it in, and you put them behind the 8-ball, I think something like that is going to play huge in how someone like Jalen Milroe tries to go out and play. Because I do think he has the propensity to, like, as time goes, he wants to be the Superman. That's what Nick Saban had to get him off of last year. Instead, Nick had to talk him into being the point guard as opposed to the shooting guard.
Yeah.
And I think knowing what this game is, what the situation is, it's easier for people to fall back into what's comfortable for them and what they've done and what they've always done, which he's always had to be that guy. So I do think if you're able to do something like that early this game, it is going to push him a little bit more and more to what he's used to doing, which that'll play right into your hands.
No doubt. And we talked about this, the intensity of the defense brings the intensity of the stadium. And you had it against Ole Miss in the first half, even though it wasn't at home. You've got to bring that, like the intensity defensively, right? It was on the road, so like you didn't feel it at home. But the defense for the whole first half was flying around. They were hitting the shit out of people. They were doing the things you wanted to do. In the second half, it went opposite. You have to be able to sustain that the entire game at home with the crowd behind you. So I'm pumped. I've just made myself really excited about the game.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions in there in the chat or no?
We have 3.
Okay, look. 3 is better than none. Let's ask Mikey and Mitch.
3's a company. What do you mean?
Yeah, we'll answer some questions, get into it. I'm sure there'll be more that pop in there as we go.
First one up, Kenny Balala, Ask Eminem, who do y'all think will have a breakout game against Bama? My early thought is Chris Hilton.
That would be nice. That's a hard one to, I guess that would be the definition of a breakout game. I mean, he hadn't played all year. It's the second game. Big one.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's a good one.
I'm going to go with, don't get me wrong, too. I know, 2-3 weeks ago? Or 2 big games ago, if you will. I know he caught the winning touchdown in that game. I think this is a spot where Kyron Lacy, who's a guy is leading the team in targets, he needs to go off. I really do feel like if he can be that guy that moves the chains, that makes the plays, that continues to be a thorn in their side, that continues to show up, drive in and drive out, I think it's huge. And I think if he's able to do that, for himself, which I'm sure this is in his mind, in the back of his mind a little bit, this is a statement game. This is a statement opportunity for him. This is something for him to put on tape for them to be able to see in April.
Yeah.
So I think this is something that's huge for him in this situation, and obviously there is all of the implications that it is for this season and this team as well. I think if he's able to step up in this game, it's huge for him.
So I'm gonna stay on the receiver side. I'm gonna go with Aaron Anderson.
What's breakout for Aaron Anderson?
So, and that's the thing, right? Because the breakout's it makes the question a little bit different for me, right? And I think last week was a breakout for him. I think he had over 100 yards receiving. Obviously, he had the 75-yard. He had the first big play of his LSU career.
Yeah,
75-yard touchdown. I think you're gonna look at him, and he's gonna be like when you need to make the tough play, right? 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s, and he's starting to kind of have a little bit of that right now. I think he's going to have that. I think there's obviously added motivation for him coming from Alabama. Some of those guys that he was there with are still there, and he's going to want to go out there and make – he didn't get to play much last year. He wasn't a factor at all. Now he is.
2 years ago.
No, last year.
Oh, you talking about against – I thought you meant
against Alabama. Yeah. So he played against Alabama last year, but he didn't really play.
Yeah.
So I think that I wouldn't be shocked to see him have a monster game. And, well over 100 yards receiving. You know what I mean? Like a big play, not saying 75-yard touchdown, but make guys miss, 20, 30-yard chunk plays, that kind of stuff. What about you, Lloyd? You're trying to figure it out.
He's thinking.
I can see your
I think we all want to go to receiver because I thought the first one I thought of was C.J. Daniels. But I'll go to the other side of the ball because I think he has been a factor and he has been better. And I'm between either Sage Ryan or Major Burns. Because it's going to be one of the two that either Sage Ryan's going to be able to come up with a big play. I think there's going to be times they bracket Ryan Williams and he's going to be kind of like shading over the top. I think Zy Alexander's kind of has clearly been your best corner.
I think Witt's a big one too.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but I think he already has his breakout game.
Yeah, I think he's going.
I think 18 tackles he already broke out. I think.
Yeah.
So I think if Major Burns can kind of contribute to that number and stay around the line of scrimmage, bottle up the run game, that is. Whether it be Jalen Milroe's assignment or just keeping him from being able to hand it off and Jalen Milroe's the distraction. He runs it probably 12 to 15 times a game, leads the team in carries. So it's going to be a factor. It could be Greg Penn. That's the one that's like keeping him in the middle. But somebody on that defensive front that will be around the football. I'll go Major Burns. It's a big game for him. He's from Baton Rouge. He understands that this is a little bit more.
Yep. Love that. That's a good one. Next. Ask
Eminem. Can you blow again? Thank you, sir. Who do y'all think gets the first run play? Surprise attack Nuss. Take it for 15 yards. I think that would actually.
I think he's on his bet slip right now. While he's asking his question.
Let me give you.
If Nuss pulls it the first play,
I'm gonna go. Xavier Thomas.
Ah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Xavier Thomas. First running play.
Josh Williams.
Okay.
He's gonna get the rock first.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Josh Williams is going to play a good bit more than Kane Durham's been good in pass protection, but I think that's one of those games because of the Mubanga factor that you probably have Josh Williams stay in the backfield and be able to help you block on the inside.
Dude, this is an attitude game, and it's always been that. Like, I think when you in terms of playing against Alabama, especially for LSU, when you play them, you have to be able to take the mindset of not only like are we equals, but I'm better than you, I'm stronger than you, and I'm going to show you what's up. And so for you to do that means we're not trying to trick you by giving the ball out of the backfield to Xavier Thomas first. We're not trying to trick you. We're going to come right at you, and we're going to let you know we're here all damn day. So I think these type of games, when you win these type of games, or if you're planning on winning these type of games, you have to show up with an attitude, and you have to show up in the sense of there is no trickery to this. We just gonna come right at you. So I do think he's gonna get the ball